and a community organizer. And I am the founder of this conference where we are this weekend called Mycelium Mysteries.
All of the women that are here, they're going to pick up whatever nuggets of knowledge and experience that they do, and they're going to go back and make their communities and families better off for it.
I did not like mushrooms growing up because my whole relationship with them is the little cans, the 4-ounce cans you open with a can opener, and I thought they were gross. It wasn't until Linda started talking about Mycelium Mysteries that I'm like, well, come on, what can you all do with a mushroom? Oh my Lord, mushrooms are absolutely fascinating. Not just as a culinary thing or beautiful to look at or take pictures, but for me, learning about the bioremediation that they're trying to do and how it cleanses the soils, and just the fact that what we think of as the mushroom is such a small little part of what the mushroom actually is.
Grew because we were in the woods and saw lots of mushrooms and felt like we wanted to have a women's mushroom conference to gather women and highlight women's voices in mycology.
But yeah, so we have a lot of things that look just like turkey tails but are not turkey tails. And we just found 2 of them right next to each other. How cool is that?
I'm a conservation biologist based in northern Minnesota. I've been coming to this conference since the beginning and teaching mushroom identification, often with a focus on edibility. I set up this display every year to give people the experience to really touch and smell and look at these mushrooms. It's one thing to see a picture of a mushroom in a field guide and totally another thing to handle them, and everything is labeled. So it's really just a learning experience that we offer conference participants. This display is always organized in terms of edibility. So there's the common, delicious, super safe, great for beginners, edible mushrooms, all the way down to the really poisonous, including some deadly mushrooms. And yeah, we have some information on fungal phylogeny, which is really interesting. Often mushrooms that look really similar aren't actually closely related at all. I mean, we also talk about how do we give back, and how do we think about the ways that we can be stewarding these lands that are also taking care of us. Such a special place to be and spend time with other women on this wild topic of
Weirdo.
We have to ask their permission to take a picture.
I think that
They're okay with
I
it.
think they're super into getting their picture taken. Look at them. I think they'll be super into having their photo taken. There's a third one over there.
I'm the lead programming coordinator.
And how did you hear about this event?
I heard it from a friend who's been going with her sister, and she invited me, and I came up, and it's been great. I mean, it's a lot of teamwork. We work together really well. There's a collaborative method for how we make decisions and decide where things go, how to, we split up sometimes to make things get done faster, and everyone works on communication so that, we're all working really well as a team. I didn't even like mushrooms that much a long time ago, and now I think they're fantastic. I'm learning a lot about herbs and learning how to grow things, and all the presenters are so amazing and open and willing to share all of their stories, and it's very inspiring. I've taught 2 singing workshops. Linda gave me the opportunity to do those, and I've taught them at the fall conferences, and it feels great.
I've met a lot of the women through connections through the herbal world and then beyond, and then have met women through each other. It's networking. Mycelium is, that's why we call it Mycelium Mysteries, because women network the way Mycelium does, like underground, informal, word of mouth.
I'm from Milwaukee. I grew up on a farm, and I remember my cousins and my grandparents. They always were out foraging mushrooms, and they knew everything about it. But my mom and dad weren't into it, and I was always kind of, sad that I never knew that. So here I am, wanting to learn about how to forage for mushrooms.
This is a really cool mushroom. It's actually not common at all. It looks like geostrum, which is the classic earth stars, but it actually, instead of having one hole or ostiole, it has multiple. So I don't know where. Yeah. Yeah.
Multiple
So
osteoles.
these are the rays. So it's kind of like a puffball, but if a puffball was elevated on these arms to get higher into the air column, and so it will actually see if we can. I don't know. It worked? Okay, great. So it's called myriostoma, or pepper pot.
And with myriostoma, myrio means many and stoma is mouth. So it's got many little mouths, the osteoles.
I'm the executive director of United Plant Savers, and we have the sanctuary in Ohio where we have a lot of demonstration gardens and the Jim Duke Ethnobotanical Library, and we also host a deep ecology artist fellowship, and so we're always doing different educational events. We're a membership-based organization, so people join. We send out newsletters every other week. We produce the Journal of Medicinal Plant Conservation, always providing information so people can get involved and kind of tap into this knowledge and these resources that are out there.
Mycelium is all about connecting, and being able to transform does require like having connection with other human beings and healing through those connections and using that platform.
And for some women, this event is the first time they've been in a all women's event, and it is life-changing. I hope that this gathering for women coming here and to learn with and from each other will simply, of course, go out into the overculture. And because when transformation happens, when we can benefit from women's wisdom, of course we're going to share it. Of course we're going to share it outside of our space. And therefore it benefits everyone. It is a wondrous thing to see so many young women here.
I'm Mariah Rogers. I am currently the secretary of the Wisconsin Mycological Society, which is how I heard about this event, because I joined WMS, and then WMS chooses to sponsor Mycelium Mysteries each year. And so for a while I knew we were doing that, but I didn't go. And then finally I went, and I was like, wow, why haven't I gone before? Because it was really, really nice. And now I'm back for my second year, and I've also started at University of Wisconsin La Crosse as a student, a graduate student, to get a degree in mycology. And that's where I met Lauren.
I came here to teach tree lore and an introductory class to the Norse runes, the runic writing system that we are all of us who speak English and write in English are using, but most of us don't realize it.
So I'm also a mycology graduate student. I'm new to Wisconsin and to the Midwest, but I'm very community oriented, and I just love mushroom events because it's a great way to meet people and learn. Like, community learning is just so dynamic and so layered, and so I was drawn to this event for years. I didn't know if I'd ever be able to come, but I was so grateful that they offered the opportunity for me to come present and share my skills after about 8 years of mycologizing between New York and Washington State. And so I'm a proud educator and mycologist who loves this kind of stuff. So.
Oh my gosh, look at this. I thought that was needles. Okay.
I
thought it
was too.
Okay, you gotta get some footage of this.
I thought that was
those
needles too.
are all mushrooms.
What?
Yep, and I bet also that people have been probably walking past these a lot.
Oh my gosh.
Probably so that a lot
They're
of
like-
them got big real fast with all that rain.
Yeah,
I totally
They're-
thought it was pine
They're
needles.
the exact color of the pine needles. Look at that.
That's amazing.
Isn't that? So this is
They're
like a type of coral mushroom,
That's what I was gonna say. They look like coral.
And
That they
coral
sure do.
mushroom is like a shape, kind of. It's like saying that's a worm, and it can be a lot of different like lineages. But
Yeah.
it's all the same shapes.
No, approachable, intermediate to advanced mushroom identification skills, which is a mouthful, but yeah, it's just meant to be a way for people who have spent a couple years identifying mushrooms to kind of take it to the next level and kind of expand their vocabulary and get a feel for other things that they can be doing in their practice to learn more about fungal diversity.
I just taught one that was the Midas mushroom, ecological impacts of the invasive golden oyster mushroom. And then the next one I'm teaching is pretty close to my heart, and the first time I'm ever talking about it is life lessons from life science communication. And that's my minor in my PhD.
The collaborative Myco book, which was where I brought just a bunch of books. Like, here's just 2 books, but I brought loads and loads of books, some magazines, recipe books, science books, art books, and some of them like a poetry book that wasn't even about mushrooms, but it was supposed to be like get your head in the space to write some poetry about what you're seeing. And the idea was I've also brought paper and pens and colored pencils, and everyone just kind of sits and shares and reads that material, reads around, and then decides what they want to put on their pages. And each woman would put whatever she wants on her page, and maybe she goes to 2 pages, maybe she goes to 3, maybe she just colors on all of them. But that's her page in the book, and then we get a picture of all of them as long as somebody's okay with that. And then digitally, all those pages can be together in one book.
If your definition of a plant is a green plant that photosynthesizes, then lichens and fungi don't belong to that. There's something different.
It's very retreat-like, is what I would say. Like, especially with they're up in that with having a sauna and massage thing. And
so we came first for the Herbal conference in May, and now we are here again for the mushroom conference this fall. People love the sauna. They love the sauna, the cold plunge. I think that the women have been so appreciative to have this here and also have this beautiful lake and view and space where they can just drop down into their body.
Food's really good.
Yeah.
Everybody will mention the food.
Gotcha. More fleshy, better, yeah, like steak. So you can see that if you get up close and look at these, they'll also be asymmetrical. So this
You can pack your garden stuff in here and
get a picture of that too. That's
put it in your
pretty cool.
kitchen, and it's a harvest apron.
A lot of mycological events are really good at this, but I feel like this space does a good job at picking out educators with different areas of expertise. And so if you just want to dance or sing or make art, you have options for doing that. Or if you want to learn about ecology or natural history or ethnomycology or identification and taxonomy and community science, they make spaces for that.
My particular area of the mushroom world is a psychoactive magic mushroom that was originally part of a lineage in Oaxaca, Mexico. And a woman named Maria Sabina shared it for the first time with a white man in the 50s. And out of that sharing created a whole lineage of research and clinical trials, which I was a part of as a scientist. And then through many mysterious shifts in my life, I left science. Let's say I left formal science behind and started experimenting on myself as a research subject and trying to figure out what worked for my, for my own experience.
So I was really drawn to this event because of the breadth of opportunities they have for people to learn about mycology in different ways.
We talk a lot at this conference about this amazing gift that we are being offered. And I mean, I eat a lot of mushrooms. I feed my family a lot of mushrooms. I am an avid forager, and I really love being able to go in the woods and find that nutrition and remember where it came from and be connected to my environment in that way.
So that has changed my life in a lot of ways. Like I said, I started out, I've been a practicing herbalist for 30 years. And I always learned about mushrooms every year. I'd learn a couple mushrooms, here and there. But in the herbal world, when I started this path, the mushroom world and herbal world were very separate. They weren't integrated. And, I sort of see we started this conference 8 years ago. We have been a pioneer in helping with the integration of the voice of the people who are excited about mushrooms and the people who are deeply connected to the herbal world. And so it's really changed my vantage point in that, seeing mushrooms as a part of the healing journey. And I've learned so much more about mushrooms in the past 8 years and incorporated them into my personal life, into my work, and just have such a deep relationship with them. Every year we get feedback from lots of women, and verbally women will come up to me. This is life changing. It brings women's attention to the natural world in a different way. Women have a really strong relationship to nature and the natural world. And like living in a patriarch that is cutting us off from the environment. When we get out here and we're together, reinforce this in each other, and we reflect back to each other the richness of how we are part of the natural world. I mean, we're very similar to mushrooms, right? We always say this, like we, produce vitamin D from the outside of our skin, and so do they. And we break down our food with enzymes internally, and they do it externally. So we're so similar to mushrooms. And just feeling that, and knowing that we're part of the natural world, it really changes you. It shifts you. It shifts your perspective. It shifts how you walk through the world, how you relate to each other. Um, it's just really rich, and I think it changes women's lives, and I think it has the potential to create a lot of change in the world.
What did the mushroom say when she needed a little more time? I'm gonna need a minute.
Cordyceps, lion's mane, chaga, all of them can be in the number one. Point two, the point two in the pyramid, these are where you put your herbs that support and tone and nourish the body. I like to put adaptogens here for most people because most of us need adaptogens.
My keynote was shapeshifters and rule breakers, plants that act like fungi. So I was really diving deep into parasitic medicinal plants, unraveling all those complexities, looking at the earth and from a different perspective, as if we were, all parasitic in our environments, and not parasitic in a negative perspective, but going back to like the Greek origin of the word of like really coming together and sharing. And I think that's a much more holistic way to understand and think of parasites in our environment.
So we had a panel discussion last night where we talked about the future of fungi. And I mean, really as a whole, they're so resilient. They will survive us on this planet. So I don't worry about that. But I do worry about the diversity of fungi and the species that are more sensitive and have highly specific habitat requirements or only occur in certain types of forests, because we're losing forests at a really rapid rate. In my area, the main threats that I see to forests health and fungal diversity is logging, especially clear-cut logging, where you're, just rapidly changing an environment and the species that can live there. And also invasive species. There's a lot of places where I used to forage that had all kinds of plants in the understory and mushrooms in the understory, and have in just 10, 15 years have become a thicket of buckthorn. That's a major invasive species in my region. Yeah, it's almost like you don't notice it happening because you still see the oaks in the canopy. And I think if you're just driving down the road, you might just think, oh, it's just a forest, but you go in and it's different, and we're never going to get that back, So we're trying to do as much as we can in our area to raise awareness about invasive species, get people out on the ground identifying plants. We organize buckthorn pulls, just trying to find ways that we can give back to these lands that are supporting us too.
Like, even the beneficial interactions can totally happen. I mean, that has happened with in a sense, with golden oyster, right? Humans are interacting with the mushrooms and they're pretty happy with it. In Hawaii, there's the strawberry guava, which is one of my favorite fruits. I've only ever tasted it because there's a little patch of it planted at UC Riverside where I did my undergrad. But the locals ended up really liking strawberry guava, but it's invasive in Hawaii. So all sorts of interactions can happen that end up being good for the community or bad for the community. Every combination of it exists in the invasive species space.
I Googled mushroom conference.
Nice.
I planned and I flew here. I was really excited about taking the immersion. I, of course, have grown mushrooms before, but being in community with other folks, as well as learning so much different methods together, troubleshooting, that's what I was really looking for, and I definitely got it by coming here.
So I'm a pediatrician, and I'm also a mushroom club president, and that combination of skills has led to me becoming a mushroom club speaker and presenter, and that's part of how I ended up at this series.
This is called Tremella fusiformis. It's also called the snow fungus or the beauty fungus. And you can buy this at any Asian market. There is a company in Minnesota that says theirs is organically sourced. But its capacity to help our tight junctions, which are proteins in between cells. So they line our stomach, they're all in our skin, they're in charge of what gets through a membrane or doesn't, okay? Those mushrooms help our tight junction proteins function better. So some of you have heard of leaky gut, and basically what's happening with leaky gut, the stomach lining, so the stuff you eat is up in here, and then if these proteins aren't working well, they're letting all kinds of stuff into your bloodstream that would not normally be there. And so now we have all kinds of people allergic and sensitive to all kinds of things that were unheard of, even 10 years ago. It's been amazing how awful this is. So one thing that affects this is the health of your microbiome too. And also consumption of emulsifiers. And one little tidbit that I heard from the Microbiome Medics podcast is both of those women are GPs, and they had women with recurring UTIs. They could not stop them adjusting their microbiome, but they took them off emulsifiers and they stopped having trouble.
So at this conference, so I taught the 2-day pre-conference cultivation workshop. I taught the 3-hour Transform Your Voice, Transform Your Life workshop, and then also talked a shorter time, a 90-minute Transform Your Voice, Transform Your Life, and then I also talked about medicinal mushrooms too. That's been interesting too, because as I've been talking about that topic, I realized that I had to bring a lot of the other stuff that I know about human health and about the conditions that we're facing in this country, or all over the world really, and the challenges that basically the food industry being bolstered and run by capitalism and based on somebody exploiting something, that that I have to actually talk more about the entire system, not just about one specific mushroom and its qualities. So it's been an interesting kind of transformation of starting out with these studies and then going on to talking about a much bigger picture.
United Plant Savers was an organization that was really founded by women at women's conferences. Of course, there were some key men involved in the founding of the organization, but the membership and the energy that went into the organization was really powered by women. And I think often women just, I think, inherently think beyond themselves. Almost, we have like something like 250 botanical sanctuaries in our network, and like 98% of them were founded and created by women. And it's not because only women can do it. You know, I think that because we just have that tendency to want to tend our families, tend our environment, we do things from a very altruistic place.
I think it's an amazing opportunity. It's so seldom that we get this opportunity. There are more, since Linda started this one, there are more now women's mushroom conferences, but this is the first one I had heard of. Pretty much with the way that we're socialized in this country and as females, it makes a huge difference not to have kind of their attention pulling on us and caretaking and looking out for and all the things that we're encouraged to do as women. Like, to have that like separated from the picture makes a big difference. I remember the person that came and assisted me last time it isn't like she hadn't been to women only events, but she said, this feels so different.
It's not just in the mycology world. We live in a patriarchal world. And so, we have, men's voices are elevated. Men have historically had more access. I mean, even, there's a keynote speech this weekend that's going to be about women in early mycology. And a lot of them, express themselves as artists or other ways, like Beatrix Potter, for example, who was a mycologist, but she didn't call herself that. She wasn't academically trained directly because she wasn't directly, but directly because women didn't have access at that time for that kind of training. And so, we still are affected by that today for that early lack of access. Also, our voices in general tend to be quieter. We don't speak up as much when we're in the company of men. Men tend to over speak women. So here, we're elevating and highlighting and underscoring women's voices, and it's really exciting and fascinating. We're going to do a talk tonight, a panel discussion on conservation and mushrooms and how invasive mushrooms affect the environment or not. We don't really know. And so, but we're going to have a dialogue with a bunch of women who have academic training but are also in relationship to the mushrooms. And so I think women are the ones who can come forth and have these conversations and start to help shift what's happening with our environment. And so I'm super excited about this panel discussion, and where it'll lead.
Half the Earth being kind of a good target. There's a lot of talk about 30%. The current protection percent is around 17% for land. Ocean has its own kind of measures as well. It's around 10% now, I think. So it was just very interesting to be kind of at a very different scale, being able to inform UN decisions that inform government policy at the national level, and then rolls right down to what's happening on the ground. So as I've been thinking about hopefully what to contribute to the talk tonight, thinking about just how grounded everyone is here, how close you are to the earth, and your knowledge of these mushrooms and these species that you're working with, and what you're discovering and learning, and that opportunity to kind of feed that back up through that chain. I've always believed that starting from the ground up is absolutely critical. And I just think there needs to be more heard from this level, from the higher powers, so the decisions are made in the right way.
There's been just an explosion in the awareness of medicinal mushrooms and them entering the economy. And so with that comes a whole bunch of questions and ways of navigating that realm from a conservation perspective. And I think it's really timely because as we learn about how valuable these medicinal mushrooms are for our immune system and our well-being, it's like a light is turning on about how alive our ecosystem is and what these mushrooms can teach us about our environment. And I think it's a way of the plants and fungi and the natural world communicating to us to be like, boo, boo, we're here, we're important. Because really, obviously mushrooms can be found in all different types of ecosystems, but the diversity of mushrooms in the forest ecology is so unbelievably fascinating, and it's really bringing awareness about forest ecology, forest health, and how important diversity is to, I don't know, I think the way I think about it sometimes, it's like, it's such a reflection of the neural connectivity in the brain and what the neural connectivity is of the landscape. And so the last thing we want to do is, diminish the Earth's capacity to heal itself.
How can we support the interest in mushroom foraging while minding conservation efforts to ensure sustainability of mushroom populations? So I think the key to that is education. Education about sustainable and respectful foraging techniques, and also more information on the different mushroom species that are becoming so popular and so easily recognizable by a growing number of people that want to utilize them.
I love, especially because I have had the experience of being the only woman who was sticking around to be part of the ID crew, like the identifying the mushrooms and vouchering them. And it's kind of awkward. I've had some awkward moments where somebody's, said to me like, "Oh, come on, let's let the boys continue. Let's go on." And this is internalized misogyny somewhat. And I've had people say, just assume that I'm not part of that. And it's really nice to be in a place where everybody knows I'm part of that because we're it. Like, we're here.
Yeah. I found my professors, Dr. Ann Pringle and Dr. Michelle Husino, and they are the best. And they were at UW-Madison. And so I was like, all right, Madison's where I'm going to go. And Anne spoke at this conference last year. And then they were kind enough to reach out to me and invite me to come this year.
This is my first event that's an all-women's event for anything, but specifically for mycology. And yeah, the men tend to take up a lot of space, and so it's really nice that you can see women just feeling fully confident, fully comfortable, asking questions maybe that they wouldn't have asked otherwise, and just taking up the space we deserve to take, and learning together in a encouraging way is really nice at this event.
Yeah, you can see the difference. Not for everybody. Some people are always assertive, but for a lot of people, through no fault of their own, it's like I see them at WMS forays where it's a mixed sexes, and they're like reticent or more, they're being talked over. And here it's like they come out of their shell and I hear from each one, and it's really good.
It does, and it really builds some cool teamwork aspects that you don't see in the real world. I grew up doing, mostly male-dominated jobs, UPS, the fire department, so I'm used to a very rigid hierarchy. And being here was a challenge for me because that's what I was used to, where Linda has everybody do shared team leadership, and it has made me grown. And if anything, it's now going to be hard if I decide to go out and do anything else, because this is a really cool model and it really works. And if I don't get it out in the real world, I'm going to be disappointed.
The men sort of dominate the space, and people tend to, without maybe not even intentionally, you tend to have more gravitational pull towards that like iconic man in the room who's getting all the attention. And so it's definitely a different vibe when it's all women, and it feels like everybody's together, they're supportive, and there isn't that level of um bias or dominance.
Life science communication is about it's kind of the social theory underlying how we talk to people about science and yeah, just kind of complicated topics. It can range anywhere from like GMOs to nuclear energy to vaccines to invasive species, which is what I work on. I think being a scientist and even just being a nature lover in this day and age can be kind of a complicated and hard and grief-filled experience. And so I wanted to try and find ways to like cope with that in healthy ways and communicate with people who might be coming from a place of just not knowing, you know, like there are a lot of different ways of not knowing. People can be willfully ignorant, they can be innocently ignorant, and I don't know, ignorant is kind of a strong word, right? But just to say that there can be different reasons why they don't know something, and you shouldn't assume that they don't know something, or you shouldn't assume the reasons why they don't know something. And so right. That's yeah. Yeah, kind of an important like third step of that.
I am totally in love with the concept of neuroplasticity, with the fact that we have brains that are actually meant to change. And the thing that most people don't know is they actually get to be in charge of that change. And to become aware of the messages and recordings and cultural heritage and all those things that got packed into your brain when you were really young, because our brains are meant to be really absorbent when we're really young, to actually be able to examine what that material is and then decide what you might want to keep and what you don't want to keep, and decide what direction you want to head in as far as your own neuroplasticity. That's one of my big kind of underlying philosophies and what I love teaching. So I've often taught a workshop called Transforming Relationships, and there's a lot of that kind of principle involved. So,
You know, but I mean, obviously, lots of people are into mushrooms. So, if you were to go to like a mushroom conference, I can guarantee the majority of the presenters and the people who are there promoting their books and whatever, it's gonna be, you know, some wonderful men. And so to be at a mycological gathering that's all women is pretty unique. I don't know if there's anything else out there like it. Well, United Plant Savers has been very involved in the establishment of the Appalachian Beginning Forest Farmers Coalition, and that is a coalition of nonprofits and different universities that is really focused on providing resources on non-timber forest products. So syrups and mushrooms and forest botanicals and you know, all kinds of nuts and all kinds of different things that can be harvested from the forest without cutting the trees. I think it's really important to get involved in forest conservation here in the United States, and we need to really shift how we perceive the forest. And I do feel like understanding the fungal diversity in our communities helps us bring awareness to forest conservation. I think we need to shift how we manage our forests and really take a hard look at the rate of deforestation in the United States and overall forest ecology and forest health.
Consider that places have endemic microbial diversity. Consider that places have native communities of fungi, and that we are all really excited about fungi and cultivating them and edible varieties, but there can also be a more responsible and a more thoughtful way that we do those things and be excited and interact with fungi in ways that also protects native fungal communities.
Many of the tree species in the United States not that long ago were big, you know, and we can let trees grow big again. We don't have to keep logging our forests. And if we are logging, we need to be very responsible about how we log and manage our forests.
Just coming to an event like this, like there are ways you can contribute to our collective understanding of mushrooms just by getting out on a foray and finding something. And if it's not something new to science, if it's new to you, then that adds to mycology. So get out and get your hands on a mushroom and ask questions and have fun.
So Sustainable G's is a nonprofit that is focused on restoring dignity to land practices, as well as enriching our cultural food legacies through exploring new ways of working with our food and indigenous or ancestral food. So at the organization, I am director. And so one of the things that I like to focus on is the land practices aspect, but as well as oral history telling, learning from our elders, learning from the history of the land, and recording these stories from our community to uplift and inspire future farmers and future growers of our world. The other organization is called Mawe Apothecary. Mawe means our mothers in Eastern and South Africa, so our mother's way. It's a return again to using our hands, using our knowledge of the land to heal ourselves through botanical products. We also have a very large project going. It's called Good Dirt, the Texas Black Farmer Oral History Project, where we'll be interviewing farmers from all across Texas for the rest of the year. This project, when it's completed, will be going into a museum in 2026 in San Antonio, Texas. So we're definitely excited about that.
When Juliana Furchi came, so she has the Fungi Foundation. She's based in Chile. She's a Chilean mycologist and very dynamic, very amazing person. And we, unfortunately, because of COVID, we had her just on Zoom. But even then, like, her presence shines through, and it's wonderful. Just look up videos about Juliana Furchi and the Fungi Foundation. And she's actually the one that lobbied to have us use the term funga to go with flora and fauna, that the third term should also be funga. And so we were discussing this. I got to moderate a panel that Juliana was on, and then also my friend Eleanor Shavit, who's an ethnomycology person and longtime mushroom person. The two of them, and we were discussing many different aspects of fungi, and Juliana is very big in fungal conservation, and she actually got the Chilean government to write in protection of fungi into the Constitution of Chile. And so, but we talked about survival of the most collaborative rather than survival of the fittest. And what the story that I've been getting to is that I said that a number of times in a presentation, and then the team here actually took that and made it into a bumper sticker and surprised me with it by asking a leading question, like, what is that thing you say, Cornelia? And then all of them held up the bumper sticker.
I mean, we're really the only organization that's advocating for medicinal plants that are at risk in trade and fungi. So we're really a unique organization, and we're grassroots, we're membership based. So I think, really what's most critical is, advocating, bringing awareness, and making people aware of where their medicinal plants are coming from that are in the natural products that they consume.
I'm a visual artist. I paint with watercolors, plants, and fungi. And here at Mycelium Mysteries, I got to share a workshop in the one we painted mushrooms that we foraged with watercolors. And I also got to talk and share a little bit about my art process and how, for me, and I feel for others, nature can be a doorway. Creativity can be a doorway to getting to know nature in a deeper level. I heard about Mycelium Mysteries because Linda, the organizer, saw a video that I had made on YouTube sharing a little bit about my fungi artwork, and she reached out. So outside of here, I paint. I study plants and fungi in their scientific phylogenetics divisions. I also teach watercolor classes, workshops, and at the moment I have my fungi painting 2024 edition open. It's a print that I release once a year for 1 month, and then it's not available until next year, but it's available right now.
A year ago, we ended up having a Follies where it was like a talent show in a way, and I got up and told a story, which I have never really gotten up in front of a camera and done anything. So that was just kind of interesting. Linda keeps pushing us all to get out of our comfort zone and do more things. That's without even talking about the classes that are offered. It's just the whole vibe that's here.
But survival of the most collaborative. It's a way to move forward with everything, I think, and to think about the future.
Well, I mean, we have so many access points to our events, both the Midwest Women's Herbal Conference and Mycelium Mysteries. We offer a good number of scholarships every year. And, you know, we do have priorities for scholarships for women of color, for elders, you know, people who might not typically, you know, be able to afford to come financially. We have work exchange program that gives a deep discount, and we always need help. So, and you know, it's a nice way to access the conference because you also become part of the community and part of the team that actually holds the container for this space. So there's lots of access points. Teaching, yes, women come and share and teach. You know, the registration is part of their stipend and compensation. So there's so many ways to access, and we really try to make it accessible to as many women as possible. I'm always on the lookout for, you know, women who would like to be here, who would like to support other women in learning and growing and connecting.
Yeah. It's very hard, so you have to watch. It's intricate. Mycelium. This is mycelium. Stem it. Cap it in spores.
Say pepper pot. Like you did say pepper pot, but it was like you can see it looks like one. Like why is it called pepper pot?
Well, you didn't know that? Well, pepper pot is a South American dish. It's called pepper pot. And I just didn't know why it was connected, but I was like, they must have, maybe they thinking of it as the dish that stuff is being cooked in.
No, but look at
it's because it's like a pepper shaker.
Pepper shaker.
It should be called the pepper shaker.